Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. This is Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. As you can see, things are a little bit different. You can see that I have a different chapeau today. Yes, today was graduation day. Thank you again, Bayan Islamic Graduate School, for making my dreams of education come through, as well as a lot of brothers. Imam Jihad Safir, Imam Suleiman Hamid. We had so many people. Brother City Councilman Bashir Jones, Sundus Jabir. We had so many people who graduated today. All praises due to Allah, man. And we always talk about process on the show. When you talk about education, process is really so important, brothers and sisters, because it's so much more than the hat, the cap and the gown and the tassel. It really comes down to the fact that education is really a communal effort. And with it being a communal effort, we really have to, in some regards, value the tradition of education. When I say value the tradition of education, it means that getting educated to a point is okay, it's a social imperative. But once you move beyond that social imperative, once you get out of high school and you get into college, you get into the grad school, and then you go for your doctorate, these are amazing triumphs. But it's not to overshadow that there are people who've taken that same process, who didn't have, access to grad school. They didn't have access to law school or even college, but they took a model, if you will, and established a certain type of modality that we can all follow, understanding that education, the action of being a student of knowledge, is the most important thing in the world. And speaking of being a student of knowledge, today, of course, is Malcolm X's birthday. We're going to be having a birthday perspective on my brother. Love that brother. I mean, I have to say, in a lot of ways, Malcolm X truly informed a lot of what I was when I was younger and informed what I am today. Sometimes you don't get to talk about some of your influences, but I'm going to talk about him today. And I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to talk about another one of my influences. Again, a big shout out to Gil Scott Heron, who will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. I will talk about that. He will be one of our spotlight people. But before we get deep into the conversation, let me give a shout out again to anybody who's coming on the show. I know we have people out in the audience that may not get into the comment section, but let me tell you, we appreciate you coming on the show. It means a lot. That's number one. Number two is, if you want to get in the comment section, don't be intimidated. This is a welcoming platform. While I'm the host of the SOS, I do not own this platform. I've made it and designed it so we all have ownership of this platform. So we all are stakeholders in what this idea is of Shout Out Show. All right. So big shout out to everybody who made the wall for me on this whole process of getting my thesis together. Originally, signing on the team of Lonnie Ali and Jihad Turk and Munir Sheikh, who worked with me to get the scholarship. I mean, I was a late entry, and they allowed me to pursue a master's. I didn't even think they'd even let me, but they allowed me to pursue a master's, and here we are. Some years later, I got this tassel whipping me upside my head, and I have this gown. So shout out to not only the graduates, but the families of the graduates, the children, the husbands, the wives, the parents that supported the graduates. We appreciate you. Now, that part is over, so I got to get back to my regular shout out show uniform. So we're going to take this cap off. Cover your eyes for the gray. Remember, I said I died that way, brothers. I said I died that way. Ooh, that's a good looking black man right there. All right. So let me throw this out here. What is Malcolm X to you? What is Malcolm X to you? I'm going to give a little bit of a soliloquy about Malcolm X, and I'm going to touch on some points that you may or may not know. I'm not actually going to go into the biography of Malcolm X. That's a book you could read. But I want to take some time out to pull some ideas out about why he's so relevant now, why he's always been relevant. So I'm going to do that. But before we do, let me give some shout outs to the people and our shout out show soldiers. I want to give a shout out to our shout out show family. Of course, that'd be Sister Ree, just popped in the building. Ree, we hope you're doing good. Let me know when you go make it back to Texas. I hope everything's going well with you and the family. I know how it is when you're lost. So I hope everything's going well, and stay in touch. Give mom a call. Make sure she knows that she's up to date on your happenings. And we hope that everything's going well. Peace and blessings to your family. Again, express our condolences for myself and the entire Shout Out Show family. Next up, my main man, All Talk Fresh Sheet, who, like I said, here like clockwork. Brothers and sisters, he's the only ambassador to any live stream show. He is the Canadian ambassador to the Shout Out Show, has been, will be, and will remain that person. That title, brother, is yours. No one is ever going to take it. We will not have another ambassador to the Shout Out Show. We will not. Not a special envoy, nothing. Not a rep, nothing. You, brother, you will be that special person. Okay. And next up, we have our consultant producer, Sister Satana Whitfield. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Sister Satana, not just coming on the show, but helping us produce a project, produce some content that has some value. You know, it has to have something, Biz. We've been out here for heading, we're just south of 400 shows. And headed south for the 400 shows, brothers and sisters, is not this thing that's, it's a big accomplishment. It's not a big accomplishment. What is more is it's a statement about stability and discipline. You know, people say, how are you able to be a comedian? I've been a comedian, brothers and sisters, since I was 17 years old. That would infer that I've been doing this for 34 years. But in 34 years, I've had to learn different aspects of performance, writing, relationships, and I was able to do other things because of that. All praise due to Allah. I was able to do other things about that. And so this is one of the Shout Out Show. We have Brother Adib Sharif. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. How you doing, man? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for tuning in to our show. I'm gonna go all in on Malcolm, and I'm gonna try and get this done. And I'm gonna infer. I'm gonna put myself on the guidelines, the triple B's, which is be brief, brother, because you know we could be on here talking about Malcolm for quite a long time. Let me start with a conversation that I had with the musician Gil Scott-Heron some years ago in the early 90s. I had a gig with Gil Scott-Heron, and it was on a Super Bowl Sunday in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he sang a song, very famous song called "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." Again, look it up. "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." He had another song, but it wasn't his. It was a group called The Last Poets. And The Last Poets had a song that directly talked about Malcolm. You have to check it out. The name of the song was called, pardon the language, "Niggas Are Scared of Revolution." I will give you the first refrain. It says, "Niggas are scared of revolution, but niggas shouldn't be scared of revolution because revolution is nothing but change, and all niggas do is change." And it just totally took my mind, just peeled my head back, and just started doing surgery. Because this was the first, I want to say, this was the first deep dive into understanding the significance of Malcolm, hearing Last Poets, who are majority Muslim, Umar bin Hassan and all of them, talk about the relevancy of Malcolm X, and they were close to it. I was born in 66. Malcolm X was assassinated in 65. So to hear the intimacy of how these guys loved Malcolm, but also took a very nuanced understanding of how Malcolm affected the world. Gil Scott-Heron said something about Malcolm. He said, "We live in a world now when things go wrong and people are very, very upset." He said, "We are not revolutionary. We are reactionary. We are not revolutionary. We are reactionary." He said, "Malcolm was revolutionary." He said, "In some ways, Ali was revolutionary." He said, "But in that void, we have had less and less revolutionaries because we don't know what they look like. We've not been aligned to things, ideas that could uphold, I say, cause a massive upheaval of society. And Malcolm, in his way, when I look back, because people like to do the, the, the after Hodge Malcolm and the pre-Hodge Malcolm, which I think is a dangerous thing to do that. After Hodge Malcolm and the pre-Hodge Malcolm, I think it's a very dangerous thing because in doing that, you put a break in between the idea that Malcolm and the NOI and Garvey and the movements before them had a connection to Africa, had a connection to Africa. They had, I want to say, a relationship with the idea of Pan-Africanism. So when Malcolm goes to Hodge, he doesn't go directly. He goes to Hodge, but there's a trip that he has afterwards. And that trip is still consuming the idea that the black man has a place in this world and it's not under the feet of white oppression. It's not under the feet of white supremacy. Malcolm X presents something that I think we should all listen to, that we should all appreciate, which is sometimes why I get upset about, they're trying to break Malcolm away from the Nation of Islam. At one point in time, they were very poignant, a very poignant combination, an extremely articulate and meticulous arrangement of power dynamics. The evolution of Malcolm through the Nation of Islam and through his trip begins to question something that the black man had never questioned, that black identity had never questioned in America. It was the legitimacy in an open form, in a vocal way, the legitimacy of white intellect and white supremacy, not in that order, but definitely in the same conversation. This was the first time you had a group of men, and I'm not going to say just men, black, strong, masculine men who fought with intellect, who asked questions that befuddled society, that befuddled the races. Hell, they befuddled other black people. They befuddled Hoover, brothers and sisters, to the point where Hoover said, all I could do is try to mess up the dynamic of these people. They could not be locked up. You couldn't beat them on constitutional law. To kill them is to bring something even worse, which is notoriety and acceptance of their ideas and what they were talking about. Malcolm presents this conundrum very early in life. And let it also be said, since hold on, man, I have something from my sister Sultana here. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't even know it was being done like that. Sorry about that. In fact, let me just do this. See, I'm trying to do too much, brothers and sisters. There you go. But the idea of Malcolm is that you have an evolved thought, which is the ability to question. Now, there's parts of a question, brothers and sisters, that folks don't know. I've had it explained to me several times by people who are around Malcolm, Imam Qasim Ahmed, Imam Qasim Khan, people who were around Malcolm. And they talk about this transition in terms of language that moves from something that is transactional to something that is transformative. If you get a chance to look the video up, there's a video online about Malcolm's sister, his sister. You know who I'm talking about. Sister Little, who bought Malcolm as a youth from Michigan to Boston. What people don't know is she bought him as a youth when he was young, 13. And by the time he's 17, brothers and sisters, of course, he's in prison. But she says something that I think is amazing. She said that she recognized that the world was in Malcolm. And her spot as a woman, she realized that she had to, as a nurturer, as not just a woman, but as a nurturer, she realized that she had to let him experience that world, whether it was ugly, whether it was criminal, whether it was sinful. He had to engage the world because you have to have a barrier to understand. I look over and I'm saying, hey, that thing I need to clean up. Yes, Sister Ella Collins. I'm sorry about that. I always say little. Sister Ella Collins. There's a video. And she said she had to engage the animal nature of Malcolm X. She's talking about a young man in his teens. Engage the animal nature of Malcolm X. And Sister Ella does this thing to a point where when he's incarcerated, she realizes now the world has his attention. There are no distractions. If you ever deal in crime, I'm not saying I'm a criminal, but if you ever deal in crime, you know, the mind of the criminal is not an issue of if I'm going to get caught. It's an issue of when I'm going to get caught and the conditions of how I get caught and the people and the scenarios that I engage until I get caught. The idea is I'm going to get caught. It's a fatalistic view. So you see guys go to prison a lot of times, they expected to go. They expected to do time. They felt like I will run out the clock as long as I can. Malcolm X does something I thought was amazing. He runs out the clock as long as he can, but he's searching. He's searching. And he has a community of people around him who've done the same searching, not necessarily without going to prison, but they've done the same searching. And Sister Ella makes this thing extremely clear that the Nation of Islam was a beautiful place for him to land and learn how to be a man and grow up and question the environment around him. But at the same time, she states that the environment around him was still toxic, that it was still toxic, that the NOI, while it was a great solution, it wasn't the perfect solution, that Malcolm had to turn on his brother who had fallen out. Now, he never repaired that relationship with his brother who was caught and he was in a violation, if you will. He was never able to repair that. And there are parts of the family that suffered because of that. When Malcolm was put out, he was castigated by his own brothers. But here's the thing I don't want us to miss. In his scope as a teacher, and this is me as a comedian and not even, you know, college brothers and sisters. Let me make this is not an academic talk. This is a spiritual talk. This is a heart talk. The generosity to which he was willing to teach people led to the fact that he had to be assassinated. Revolutionaries do not stick around with revolutionary ideas. They may leave you revolutionary ideas, but they don't stick around. Ask anybody. And then his scope. He teaches a generation of people, self-included, that you now have the right, the privilege, and the fiduciary duty to question the society that people are trying to push on you. Let me tell you something. Malcolm said something, and I'm paraphrasing it, I'm bastardizing it, so please forgive me. But I'm hearing it through the ears of being maybe 8 or 9 years old. Man, you know, because you know my father had the autobiography of Malcolm X, and used to see that picture of him, you know, with the fist, and I was like, this guy looked fierce, and he had glasses, and I had glasses. I remember trying to be Malcolm without even knowing the whole scope of him, but he said something to me that resonated to me when I was 9 years old, brothers and sisters, and it's about the nature of blackness. But not just the nature of blackness, the nature of black intellect. Let's be very clear. You saw up until the time that you had the nation and Malcolm as a mouthpiece, as a national spokesman, brothers and sisters, the idea in America of the black man is that when white society looked at a black man, they didn't see God in the black man. They didn't see God in the black church. They didn't see God in black education. They didn't see God in us. And not seeing God in us, you say, what do they see? The only time they recognize God in us is if we looked at them as they were God. That we had this interdependence, that we had to, in some way, somehow, bow down to them and their ideology. The twist, if you will, the conundrum for a lot of us is to be a part of America. You have to get used to people not seeing the God in you. When I say the God in you, it is, you know, the ability to think freely, the ability to build communities, and I mean good communities in the midst of crooked communities, the ability to call out crime and corruption, The ability to say, I will affect this situation with my hand, with my words, and my heart. We're not talking about that in the late 50s and the early 60s. They are dealing with black folk as blood sport. You don't have the protection of law. But this is what I love. And this was a little bit different than King. I like King, but let's be honest. We all like Martin Luther King, but doggone it, we all wanted to be Malcolm. Say it. We love King, but we wanted to be Malcolm. The way Malcolm talked, the way Malcolm thought, the way he broke a situation down, the way he looked at language, the way he gave us history. This is amazing. Wa alaikum assalam, JT and Brother Eric. But what I love, and I'll always be thankful for, is that Malcolm X, in his way, broke down what it is the black man had to deal with and had been dealing with for years. That our presence was not engagement. For the mass of society around the world, but mostly in the United States, our presence in white society, our presence in white supremacy and institutional racism, it's not a presence, brothers. It's not engagement. It was entertainment. People entertain our presence. They entertain our existence. When they look in you and they don't see God in you, what that means is I don't have to engage with you. I entertain you. Here's a law. I'll sign this for you. You vote for me, here you go. Even now, we still deal with people who try to entertain us. And we see in our political elections, Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam, and the movements that came along, they bought this whole idea of engagement. And the idea of engagement was, I look at you as entertainment. I don't want to engage you at all. I want to engage my own people. I want to engage these folks. I want to empower these folks and give them a pathway to when we look at you, it's nothing but entertainment. When we look at your laws, it's nothing but entertainment. There's always a joke that, Nation Islam brother always has something that's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy if it's the truth. And as I look at it, and I'm however old, I'm 54 years old, we have to get that back. We have to get that back. I had a comment on the ShOUT show, and the guy said, well, your show would be better if, you made more jokes. You made more jokes. I said, man, if I look around the world, not a whole lot to laugh at. There's not a lot of enjoyable concepts that's out there. But if I take this whole thing like Malcolm gave it to us, like Elijah gave it to us, like Muhammad Ali gave it to us, like King gave it to us. You know what was really, really interesting? Is that I learned to engage my own people, my own black brothers and sisters. And I learned from Malcolm and everybody else that you can go out in the world and engage people that don't look like you. But made sure that I was not entertaining them. If you really want to look at Malcolm's significance, along with black theology, the aspect of the black church, but with particular deference to the Nation of Islam, W.D. Muhammad, and some of the other movements from everywhere, Philadelphia, L.A., where black people said, this God is a God that I don't entertain. This is God of engagement. And the language changed, brothers and sisters. And the freedom language, talking about freedom in open spaces, talking about freedom, and this is the most beautiful thing, pointing out to not only black people, but to the world, this is my oppressor. This is my oppressor. This system is oppressive. This system is counterfactual to the fact that I'm a human being. It made so much sense to a little kid, even my age, at the age of 9. And when I would go to school, I would sit sometimes and sit in the back of the class, and we would go through Black History class, and I would be disappointed. I would be disappointed because all the teachers never talked about Malcolm. I'm gonna give a shout out to my dad, my mom. They always reminded me of two dates outside of the regular holidays, which was Malcolm X's assassination date and his birthday. His birthday, he had two. Of course, it's natural born day, and then there's a day he comes into his consciousness. Now, you can figure out where that is, brothers and sisters, but I want to say, in some regards, he comes to that consciousness close to his death. And I don't want to be morbid, but he knew he was going to go. You can watch reports. He says, I'm probably a dead man right now. And he was a dead man walking. He didn't know where it was coming from. But here's the thing that makes him special, and this is the thing that makes him a martyr. He shows up anyway. And he gives that pattern. I remember the eulogy given by Ozzie Davis. He says he was a shining black prince because nobody talked about black people as royalty anymore. It was some figment of the imagination. It was, we could not be regal in our intellect. We could not be regal in our family. We could not be regal in love and our relationship and marriage and business. We could not be regal. And we were still looking for people who didn't see the God in us to somehow engage us. I've said oftentimes, it's just common sense for the African-American community and oppressed communities. At some point in time, you have to pull yourself away from unhealthy things. You have to pull yourself away from unhealthy things. That's an unhealthy thing. White supremacy is an unhealthy thing. The only way that it subsists is that we continue to entertain it because you can't engage it. So as we close, I want to say thank you to Malcolm X, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Muhammad Ali, Manwar D. Muhammad, the Ahmadiyya movement, the Lost Foundation, the people who held us up, and all the movements, particularly Black Muslim movements. People can say, "Oh, it's Salafi, but they took God. It doesn't matter how God met them, brothers and sisters. They still had a relevancy that while we're trying to promote this idea of Islam in this community, we're still Black. We're still Black. And we're still important. We're still relevant. And I want to give a shout out to my mom and my dad, who put those books, left them around, lay them around. And I picked those books up and I read them. And it put me in a scenario, brothers and sisters, whereby, like many of you, not only can we talk about Malcolm, but we can teach on Malcolm. And I'm not talking about, in ivory halls or these Ivy League schools, but on the corner. The children who are on the basketball court, the ones who are trying to figure out life. And I mean figure out life, not like my career, but do I even want to continue living? And that, brothers and sisters, is the magic of not just Malcolm, but that's the magic of engagement. Gil Scott-Heron was 100% right. That when a crisis breaks out, we, as a culture, get very emotional, and we're not revolutionary. We are reactionary. Let's be counterfactual. Everything that's going on in politics, everything that's going on around the world, yes, it requires a response. But let's respond like Malcolm, not just with emotion. Let's not entertain what people are telling us. Let's investigate. And let's question in open formats, in open forums. Get out of our conversations and let people know I don't agree. And let the people around them know this is why I don't agree. And take this whole aspect of quote unquote Black nationalism. That wasn't Black nationalism, brothers and sisters. That was Black love. That was Black love back in the late 50s and early. That was Black love. That was people saying, love yourself. Pull yourself away from a system that's unhealthy. So I'm going to go. I'm going to give a shout out again to my sister, Selena Suswell. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Beloved, good to see you on the show. But in the end, there's a pause. It's a pregnant pause. I hear it every year around this time. And that's that pause between life and death. Sometimes I listen to Malcolm's last speech and I hear the hesitancy in his voice, but also I hear the conviction, I hear the courage. And despite everything around him, he aspired to a divine engagement, and I can hope all of us brothers and sisters can do the same. That's the show for today. Let me wrap up. I want to give a shout out to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. I want you to give them a shot. Check them out. Go to the website. If not, call 1-800-679-3175. Again, that's 1-800-679-3175. Also, I want to give a shout out to my educational benefactors. That would be Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School. You know what, brothers and sisters? Don't believe that you're not entitled to engage in expanding your Islamic knowledge. We're all students of knowledge. That's the one thing I said early in this thing. Malcolm X encouraged me to be a student of knowledge. And I think we should pursue that as a tradition in our community. I wonder how our community would change if we did do that. If we came out of just like like in Israel, when you graduate high school, you do 2 years in the army. What if we came out of high school and did 4 years in college, and you came out of college, you did 2 years in a master's? What would this situation look like? I'm digressing, but you know what I'm saying. So listen, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much. If there's anything that I said that was out of line or inappropriate, I apologize. It's not my intent. That's on me. If there's anything that was of benefit that you can use in your life and a security and protection, the uplift of your family and communities, all praises due to Allah. All right, brothers and sisters, I am out of here. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Al-Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out TarifAltar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.